When a college student was found deceased in her apartment, her murder went unsolved for 18 years. There were many suspects throughout, however, one in particular kept investigators suspicious. This was her roommate. So almost 2 decades after her murder, this roommate was finally charged with murder. However, there has recently been a trial where she was found not guilty of that murder. Now, I am telling you this up front because I believe it is so extremely strange that this has been the outcome after all of these years. And I really want to dive deep into how the jury came to this decision and what was shown at the trial, what wasn't shown at the trial, and just to get your opinion on what in the world happened to this 18-year-old and if her roommate just got away with murder. If you are such a genuine gem, thank you for clicking on my video. I am Brooke Makenna, and if you are new, make sure you are subscribed, and if you are enjoying my videos, make sure you are signed up to the Genuine Gem newsletter so I can personally send you my videos and you will never miss an upload. Now, this case has actually just come to a conclusion. The verdict was just given a few days ago at the time of filming in March of 2025, and a lot of people were surprised by the verdict. However, some say there was not enough evidence against her, although there were multiple people who would get up on the witness stand and say that she essentially confessed, and they had told police about this. However, the police and the defense claimed that there were no records of these confessions. But before we dive into that, a quick thank you to our sponsor, Bombas, a brand that I absolutely love because they give back with their one purchase equals one donation program to give to those in need. I never get tired of talking about Bombas or wearing them. In fact, they are one of the only socks that I wear now because their founder started because they knew of the #1 need in homeless shelters for socks. So they decided that they were going to make socks, but not just average socks. Bombas are the softest, most sensory-friendly fabric, and they also have no toe seams that will annoy you, which is a huge for me. They have donated over 150 million items, and every time you purchase from them, you can help add to that. And now they offer international shipping to over 200 countries. And Bombas is giving my subscribers who are new customers 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/Brooke and use code Brooke20 at checkout. Now let's get back to the story. So it was 2007 in North Dakota, and Anita Knudsen was an 18-year-old going to the Minot State University. She was said to be an amazing writer and artist even when she was a little girl. She was a little activist who always rooted for the underdog, and she was definitely an extrovert. She was majoring in elementary education at the time while also working at a local hotel, the Fairfield Inn, and she had another job at the Dakota Square Mall at a store called Vanity. She was doing all of this between her classes. Anita was born in California, and when she was 5 months old, she was actually adopted by Gordon and Sharon Knudsen. And in 8th grade, she actually wrote and published her own book. However, when she was in high school, her entire family moved to North Dakota, 26 hours away from California, and that is where she would end up going to college in Minot. Now, Anita moved to the off-campus 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment near the college at Northgate Apartments during her second year. This was with a fellow 18-year-old roommate, a friend named Nicole Thomas. Now, Anita was very close to her adoptive parents, and she was in contact with them daily. However, by Saturday, June 2nd of 2007, her family could not get a hold of her. Her mother, Sharon, called her multiple times with no response, and the next day was the same. Knowing this was strange, her father Gordon decided to drive to her apartment that Monday on June 4th. He arrived that afternoon and found her car in the parking lot, but when he knocked on the door, he found that the door was locked and nobody was answering. So Gordon went to the property manager, who also lived on site, and asked to get into the apartment. While she was doing this, the maintenance worker of the apartment complex had arrived and pointed to a screen that he had found lying on the ground near the apartment with a slash in it. This maintenance man was named Marty Annell, and after spotting this, Gordon actually went over to the window of his daughter's apartment and looked inside. And that's when he would find his daughter's body on the mattress of her room. She was covered in a robe, but her mattress was soaked with blood. He had planned on taking Anita on a fishing trip that summer and had gotten everything ready for it. But now, he was looking at his daughter's deceased body. Minot police were called to the scene and arrived around 5:12 p.m. They would enter the home and find Anita lying face down on the bed. She appeared to have 2 stab wounds to her chest, and investigators would find that Anita didn't show up to work on June 2nd, the Saturday that her parents noticed she was not answering the phone. She was supposed to have a shift at the hotel Fairfield Inn, but she never arrived, she never called in, and her cell phone records showed that her last communication on the phone was through text messages sent to a friend in the early morning hours of June 3rd. These did not point to any signs of distress in the texts. The next day, the Minot police held a press conference, and Lieutenant Dan Strandberg stated that her cause of death was still being determined, but it appeared her death was caused by an unknown intruder. He said it was obvious homicide, and not knowing the relationship between the intruder and Anita was very unsettling. He was unsure the suspect had any sort of relationship with her. Now, 3 days after she was found, a tip would come in to the police, and this was a witness who stated that she had seen a man running up that 4th Street going northwest, which was away from Anita's apartment, around 7:30 in the morning on June 3rd, shortly after her last text was sent. This witness described this man as being in his early 20s with dark hair, a white shirt, and dark blue or black shorts with some sort of stain that could have been blood or dirt. It was obvious that this man wasn't just someone out for a morning jog. And while investigators stated they had interviewed several different individuals and had physical evidence from the apartment taken in for forensic investigation, they had no leads or suspects at this point. 9 days since she was found, they were still awaiting autopsy results. However, the police did reveal to the media that she had died from 2 stab wounds to the chest. They also had their alleged murder weapon in custody, which was a small pocket knife. However, even with the $20,000 reward for information, this investigation was quickly going cold. 8 years later, in 2016, her family delivered a petition to the Minot Police Department calling for closure in this case. This included a request that they submit the case to Cold Justice, a TV series, a documentary where they would go in and investigate with the police. That same year, the North Dakota State Crime Lab did analysis on the alleged murder weapon, and they found that it was too small of a sample for database testing, but it was enough for DNA comparison. While they tested this DNA against all male profiles of suspects that they had, none were a match. However, they allegedly could not exclude a female suspect, Nicole Thomas. This was her roommate. Now, until now, it was unknown by the public that she was someone that was investigated in this murder. But in 2017, an article in the Minot Daily News listed that the suspects that had been interviewed by the police back in 2007 included the apartment maintenance man, Marty Annell, roofing workers, the mysterious jogger, roommate Nicole Thomas, a friend named Tyler Smaltz, a man named Michael Van, who wanted to allegedly date her, and college students, as well as a group of Spanish-speaking men. So investigator Dave Goodman said that the police were just as frustrated as the family with the state of this case. He said that they even had Anita's picture on the bookshelf in the department to remind them of her when they walked past. Another year went by, and in 2018, Detective McKaylee Talbot was placed on the case for the first time. She began to re-examine the evidence and the statements, and there was hope for this case for the first time in a long time. 3 years later, in 2021, 14 years after her murder, the Minot police finally partnered with that Cold Justice TV series to use their resources and expertise in the investigation. And during the filming for this episode, they would eliminate several of the suspects or the persons of interest. They weren't ever really called suspects in this case, but they eliminated maintenance man Marty Annell, her friend Tyler Schmaltz, and the man who had a crush on her, Michael Vann. However, one of the main things that they honed in on would lead to an arrest. Now, all of this information from Cold Justice was unknown to the public as the episode had not yet aired, but investigators would announce the findings on March 16th of 2022. During a press conference, Police Chief John Klug announced that Anita's roommate, Nicole Thomas, had been arrested at her workplace and charged in the stabbing murder of Anita.
Now, after nearly 15 years of investigating and following up on leads, and the suspect is in custody. At about 3:25 p.m., 34-year-old Nicole Rice was arrested for murder and taken to Ward County Jail. I wish we could have solved this sooner, but at the same time, I'm glad to say that we have a person responsible for the murder of Anita Knutson in custody. I don't know that I would say that she was ever cleared. There was never enough to arrest her, but I would say that she was always a person of interest in this case.
They had found inconsistent statements during her interviews while researching all of the statements and the interviews from all the way back in 2017. However, that wasn't all. They also had an alleged drunken confession by Nicole that was reported to the police by her ex-boyfriend. This had occurred at a party a year or two after the murder where Nicole was said to be belligerently drunk and allegedly said, "I did it." They found that at the time of the murder, Nicole worked at a call center, but her alibi stated she was at her parents' farm, which was 20 miles away from the apartment the weekend of the murder. But these statements continued to change, and we will get into all of that. By the time of her arrest, 15 years later, Nicole Thomas was married and now going by Nicole Rice. She was living with her husband and her daughter. The affidavit of probable cause stated that the charge was largely based on evidence found in the apartment that ruled out a break-in had occurred, as well as the alleged confession to her ex-boyfriend. When the investigators questioned her ex-boyfriend about this, he said that he tried to get her to admit when she was sober that she had done this, but she wouldn't and became angry with him. There was also alleged tension found between the roommates mentioned by those who knew them. So at a preliminary hearing, Detective Michaela Tabbitt told the court that Anita and Nicole were close when they were younger, but their relationship was a toxic one, especially since moving in together. Those who knew the roommates said that Anita was friendly and likable, while Nicole was hot-tempered and reactionary. One of their friends told police they had heard Nicole say, "One way or another, I'm going to get you out of this house," to Anita prior to her murder. 7 months later, the Cold Justice episode on Anita's murder aired as their 100th episode. This episode gave a little bit more of details into the case and also how investigators arrived at the arrest of Nicole Rice. The Cold Justice team was given all of the investigative files from the Minot Police Department, and they were also sending back in the forensic evidence for testing with the new advanced techniques. Investigators had never gotten a match from the DNA they had taken from the crime scene against anyone that they had ever talked to. But digital forensic analyzed text messages between Anita and the man she was last texting before her death, Michael Vann. The expert found no evidence of animosity between Anita and Michael. However, in text messages between Anita and Nicole, it was said to paint a pretty clear picture of escalating tension between the two young women. They found that Nicole actually texted Anita after she was believed to be murdered, and they were questioning if Nicole was aware that she was dead or if she was trying to appear that way. The Cold Justice team believed that the crime scene was staged and that the killer entered through the front door. They believed that the killer had to have a key, and they began to look at her roommate Nicole and maintenance man Marty. They looked at Marty and they found that he had taken his life a year later. But they talked to Marty's best friend and found that Marty had changed after Anita's murder. His best friend feared that something had happened, but there was no evidence of this against Marty. So they eliminated him, and they also eliminated Michael Vann, the last person to text Anita before she died. They then began to look into Anita's friend, Tyler Schmaltz, who was said to insert himself in the investigation. He was one of the first people on scene. He started a Facebook page in Anita's honor. And Cold Justice actually interviewed Tyler's younger brother who lived with him at the time of the murder. And they actually lived only 3 buildings away from where Anita was murdered. But His brother did not give Tyler an alibi. He simply said he just didn't believe Tyler would have done that. Tyler was said to be very cooperative in the investigation. He raised money for billboards all around town, and he always gave them DNA when they asked. So they ruled him out as a suspect as well. So they began to focus on Nicole, and they interviewed one of her coworkers from around that time. Now, this coworker stated to Cole Justice that Nicole had bad-mouthed Anita for months, and it escalated after Nicole's pet fish were killed. Cole Justice then talked to Nicole's ex-boyfriend, William May, who was said to be the one who told investigators back in 2008 that Nicole had admitted to the murder while she was drunk. Now, Nicole agreed to actually have an interview with Cole Justice, but she downplayed the arguments between herself and Anita, and she was talking to them, but when she was asked about the drunken confession, she told them, "I don't want to talk anymore." They believed that she was the killer, which was believed to lead to her arrest. So after Nicole had been arrested, she pleaded not guilty. However, she wouldn't be going to trial right away. Her lawyers were going to do everything they could to dismiss the charge, postpone hearings, and do social media surveys to basically seek a new venue for the trial. The prosecution ended up requesting gag orders for this, and her trial was scheduled for July 2024, but was delayed again after jurors' questionnaires revealed a persuasive prejudice against Nicole in the juror pool. So a change of venue is sought due to the speculation and the media coverage that had been against her for more than a decade. Finally, the trial was scheduled for March 18th of 2025. That's right, a very recent case. This was 18 years after Anita's murder, the same amount of years that Anita had lived on this earth. Anita's parents were 80 and 90 years old by this time, and again, the defense tried to get this case thrown out. Finally, this was denied by Judge Richard Hager, and the trial began. Now, the prosecutor, Tiffany Sorgan, made her opening statements and said that Anita had a dream of becoming a teacher, but there was bad blood between her and her roommate in college. The prosecutor said crime loves silence, and that there would be whispers from the past that led to this charge, and there would be silence no more. The defense attorney, Rick Sand, looked at the jurors and said that what happened to Anita was terrible, but the pressure from this TV show, Cold Justice, led to this arrest of Nicole, not evidence. He said the original officers didn't charge Nicole because she didn't do it, that it was only after this media circus. He said the Minot Police Department pointed to a 17-year-old named Devin Hall, who the prosecution would even confess that he confessed the murder weapon was his, that he had broke into other women's homes that weekend through a window, just like Anita, and that Devin Hall continued this behavior after Anita's murder. The defense said that all fingers pointed to this other man that wasn't even spoken about in the documentary series. Sharon Knutson, Anita's adoptive mother, was the first to testify. She was 80 years old at this time, needed help to get on the stand, and admitted that she had memory issues. Sharon told the court that she adopted Anita along with 2 other kids and had older biological kids as well. She said that first year of college, Anita was in the dorms, and the second year she got this apartment with her roommate. Sharon said that she had never met Nicole before they got this apartment together. She also said that Anita and Nicole didn't actually share the same friend group. They had gone to high school together. They knew each other from then, but their relationship wasn't good. In fact, she said Anita was scared of Nicole and that her father actually had to install a lock on her bedroom door to protect her privacy. If Nicole was going to be home, Anita did not want her mother over there. She would say things like, "I have to do this before Nicole comes home." Anita would say that she had to feed Nicole's fish because if they were dead when Nicole came home, she was afraid of what Nicole would do. Her mother said that Friday before she was found dead on Monday was the last time she spoke to her daughter. She assumed her daughter was working on Saturday when she didn't answer, and she said that Gordon had to go to Minot anyway on Monday, so he stopped by to check on her. Sharon said that day, Gordon actually had one of the neighbors go over to be with Sharon while he told her the news. She was asked about Anita's friend, Tyler Schmaltz, who had been interviewed about her murder. She said that he was her friend. He kind of wanted more to the friendship, but she didn't, and they continued to be friends. Anita would even tutor him with schoolwork. Sharon spoke about how Anita's death was an incredible loss and that Anita's brother, Danny, died by suicide 3 years later. He had been 17 years old when Anita was killed. Now, during cross-examination, defense attorney Rick Sand kept mixing up the victim's name and the defendant's name, saying when Nikki died, referring to Nicole Rice, and Sharon, the victim's mother, had to correct him, saying Nikki didn't die. The second witness was Anita's adoptive father, Gordon. He was 90 years old at this time, and he had an interpreter on the stand with him, as well as having a screen in order to read the questions being asked because he couldn't hear them, so he could then respond verbally. Now, Gordon said that the day that she was found, he went to check on her, but obviously no one answered the door, so he went to do what he was meant to do in Minot. But Sharon called him again, saying Anita still wasn't answering, so around noon, he headed back, and that's when he went to the manager's office to get the key. The manager told him that she could actually get in trouble for giving him the key, but she could go and let him into the apartment. Now, at first, she didn't want to do any of that, but Gordon told her that she would get in trouble with him if she didn't. That's when Marty told Gordon about the screen, and they walked up to the window, and he said that he saw Anita right there. He could actually reach over and touch her. Gordon said he then told the property manager to get the door open, which she did. Gordon walked in to check on his daughter, but she was already cold. He then told the property manager to call the police. During cross-examination, the defense asked what he knew about the maintenance man Marty, and Gordon said he had committed suicide on New Year's Day 2009, a year and a half after Anita's death. The second day of trial, the property manager for the apartment where Anita was killed would testify. She was Laura Knapp, and she had worked there for 16 years, left in 2012. She would testify that she and the maintenance man Marty actually lived together. That was her boyfriend of 10 years. They were engaged. They lived on site at the Northgate Apartments, and he had been a maintenance man there for about 2 years. She said that when Gordon asked for the key to his daughter's apartment, they were both home, her and Marty. And she said that she actually saw that screen, and Marty had told her that he had found a screen. He took it to his workstation, and Laura saw that the screen was bent, and there was a small key-sized slash in it. Marty told her that he had found this while doing his usual walk around of the property that morning and took it to the maintenance shop to repair it. They were said to be aluminum screens, very easy to bend. So she said that she tried to open the door of Anita's apartment when they got there, but it was locked. Laura told the court that there were only 2 keys given to Nicole and Anita after they signed their lease, and additional copies could only be made by the apartment's locksmith. They weren't allowed to copy the keys themselves due to this type of key. Laura then got very emotional when she was talking about Marty's suicide and said that it could have been from him not getting the job he wanted, being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and struggling with the death of a niece a few months prior to that. Laura was asked if Marty drank, and Laura claimed that he drank a normal amount, but she said that he also did not own a knife similar to the murder weapon. She was asked if Marty did drugs. She said no. Laura was asked why Marty did not have a knife as a maintenance man, and Laura said, well, he would use them, but he didn't carry them around with him. Laura said that the two never spoke about Anita's murder after that. They just replaced the screen and went on with their lives. She was asked if Marty had mentioned throwing curtains back into the window when he found the screen, and she said no. Now, Dale Plessis was then brought to the stand, and he was the first responding officer at the time of the murder, but at the point of trial, he was actually the Minot police chief. But that was because the previous police chief, the same one that was a chief during Anita's murder, had stepped down. Minot police had said that the lack of investigation into Anita's death was due to limited manpower issues over the years, and this was believed to be due to public perception. Now, Detective Dan Strandberg talked about the knife found at the scene. He said it appeared as though there was blood on it. He said that they saw the window screen at the maintenance shop, that Marty took them to it. They took the screen into evidence due to that cut on it that could have been point of entry. Now, Detective Strandberg said that he had questioned Michael Van, the man in his 20s who was last texting Anita, and Michael said that they were texting in the early morning hours, but he was at a party that night. However, it was found that everyone left and went to McDonald's except for him. He denied involvement, no evidence was found. But during cross-examination, Detective Strandberg would make a statement that was quite different than the others being made. He said that Marty took the screen from the window of Anita's apartment, not from 100 yards away in the yard like previous testimony. Detective Strandberg said he did this because he saw a slash in it, and the tenants would sometimes lock themselves out and would go through the window to get inside, so he just took it to get it fixed. Strandberg was certain that Marty had told him he took it from the actual window. Detective Strandberg was then asked about another alleged suspect, Jerron Vivier. When Jerron was questioned, Strandberg said he denied involvement, but Strandberg knew Jerron from a case a few weeks prior to this, which was an essay case. Jerron would be convicted of this a year after the murder, and the documents I found revealed that he was 18 years old when he used physical force on a 15-year-old, and he was listed as a moderate risk sex offender on the registry after this. But no physical evidence was found to connect him to the murder of Anita. But Jerron was believed to be friends with Devin Hall, who the defense talked about in their opening statements as who they believed killed Anita, saying that the murder weapon was his. You see, Devin Hall was a 17-year-old who was said to break into other women's homes the weekend of the murder through a window and continue this behavior after Anita's murder. Jerron and Devin were both from Fort Peck Reservation in Montana. Detective Strandberg also stated that the Minot police interviewed Devin Hall in this murder as well. Now, during cross-examination, Detective Strandberg was asked the person who was seen running away from the crime scene. Strandberg stated that he was actually identified. He came forward to the police saying that he was doing a paper route and he was running to get it done. They investigated him and found no evidence of ties to this case. However, the defense believed that this was Devin Hall, who they claimed all evidence points to. By the time of this trial, Devin Hall was actually incarcerated at Fort Peck Adult Correctional Facility for theft and burglary charges unrelated to Anita's murder. Sergeant David Goodman was the next to testify. He was also one of the responding officers on the scene. He said the scene did not show a robbery or a struggle, that her purse with cash in it was visible and nothing was taken. And then Goodman also spoke about Nicole during the time of the murder. He said that he had asked her to view the apartment after all of course, the evidence was taken out, including the body, to help identify anything missing to the police. Nicole was said to immediately upon coming to her bedroom gasp and say that her iPod was missing as soon as they entered the room. He also then spoke about a reenactment that he performed to see if it was possible for someone to enter and exit through that window of Anita's bedroom. He said he didn't think it was possible because he tried this and there was stretching and deformities on the screen when he tried to do so. Goodman also showed pictures of the alleged murder weapon found at the apartment to an employee of a Wally Worlds of Knives who knew a lot about knives, who told them that the knife was very cheap and common at flea markets due to there being the Indian chief's head on it. Now, Sergeant Goodman said he interviewed Marty at the crime scene and believed he was telling the truth. He also stated that Nicole was never eliminated as a suspect and he was suspicious of her from the beginning due to the contradictory statements which signaled to him that she was hiding something. He said that he was not buying what she was telling him. And during the first interviews, he told her not to lie, and she did lie about what she did that Saturday night. During cross-examination, the defense asked the sergeant about text messages between Anita and Nicole that included arguments about a fish tank and an alarm clock. Sergeant Goodman was also asked about the interview that he did with Devin Hall on June 22nd of 2007. He said that he recalled asking Devin about the knife, and Devin said he recognized it. He thought it was a knife that he once had. He also said that the knife was missing a medallion on one side. Now, he didn't see this on the murder weapon, but the murder weapon was also missing the Indian head medallion on one side. Goodman said in the end, it was found to be a completely different knife and Devin was mistaken. But before they ruled him out as a suspect, Sergeant Goodman stated that they had gotten a few tips from women, leaving tips about Anita's murder, stating that there was a rumor that Devin Hall had killed a woman in Minot. A lady from Family Services in Montana had allegedly said she hoped Devin Hall had nothing to do with this murder. His grandmother was then asking people in the area to pray for him. So Sergeant Goodman men traveled to interview Devon Hall and these witnesses. And when he showed Devon's aunt a picture of this knife that was Anita's alleged murder weapon, she acted shocked. But he ended up saying this lead was a fruitless one. And all they found was that Anita and Jerron, who is Devon's friend, were at the same club one night, but they weren't even there together. There was no other connection of Devon and Jerron to Anita, according to investigators at this time. The third day of trial, Detective Robert Bernard testified that he had actually told dispatch at the crime scene to call Nicole, the roommate's work, to get her to be released so that they could talk to her. And when she did not come, Bernard called the work himself and asked if they could release Nicole, and that's when he was told by her superiors that they already told her and she was released. Her job was only a few blocks away, but finally Nicole would arrive at the scene, and when Bernard told her that her roommate had been killed, Nicole was said to give no reaction at all. He clocked this as very unusual. Nicole didn't ask him anything about what had happened, and he said that when she entered that apartment with them, she didn't even try to look in Anita's room or see what had happened, but she finally showed emotion only when claiming that her iPod was missing. Detective Bernard said that Nicole was interviewed several times. He even spoke to Nicole's father, Kevin, and Kevin was believed to be trying his best to be honest, but was also trying to protect his daughter. Detective Bernard said they had a few persons of interest, but none became suspects. However, he said that Nicole was never ruled out as a suspect because she was always around and they were always suspicious of her. Cross-examination by the defense asked Bernard what the FBI said about Devon Hall, and he admitted that the FBI believed that Devon Hall was a suspect. That is when a forensic pathologist, Dr. Mary Ann Sins, talked about the autopsy of Anita. She found 2 stab wounds to the chest, both an inch long and an 1/8 of an inch deep. One of the stab wounds went through tissue between the ribs and the other went through the lung. One actually hit the heart. For a period of time after her death, she was lying face down. They found hair in her hands, but no defensive wounds were found, and there was no oral injuries either. Her cause of death was exsanguination or bleeding to death. She likely lost consciousness within a minute and likely bled to death within a few minutes. The manner of death was ruled homicide. A forensic scientist then spoke about the DNA, and she said that there was swabs from the back of the knife handle, none of which provided a usable DNA profile. There was a swab from the front half of the handle, which provided a DNA profile that matched Anita, and the swab from inside of the knife components provided a mixture that was too complex to create a profile for comparison. There was actually 3 DNA samples found inside, but DNA samples were actually taken from the screen that matched Anita, as well as a partial profile that obviously wasn't suitable for comparison. But during cross-examination, the defense asked about DNA under her fingernails. And this was actually a partial profile of a male suspect under her nails that was found. Because it was partial, no match could actually be found for comparison. Next up to testify was Officer McKaylee Talbot, who was placed on the case in 2018, 11 years after the murder. She was brought on the scene to talk about how the maintenance man, Marty's friend, Vern, had spoken to her about his suicide. She stated that Vern had told her that after Anita's murder, he was never the same, and the night he committed murder, he spoke to Vern for 6 hours and told him that something had happened to him. Vern also told the officer that Marty had firearms and knives. However, Officer Talbot later found out that when it was said Marty had something happen to him, they believed it was because he was having issues within his relationship. Now, this is when Nicole Rice's supervisor from her job that she had at the time of the murder testified. He would say that Nicole would often talk about issues that she had with her roommate. They were not getting along. She was locked out of the Wi-Fi. The supervisor felt like these were ridiculous things, and he would tell her to move out, but she said she couldn't because of the lease. Her supervisor would say that Nicole's demeanor was off the day that Anita was found before anyone even knew she was deceased. He said that she was a bit hurried that day. She was not as social as usual. And then he had gotten that call from the police. He went up to her and he told her that she needed to go. And she looked at him and said, "No, my roommate's a crackhead. I'm not dealing with it." The supervisor then went back to the phone, told dispatch this, and they said they were either going to get her there or they were going to come and take her back home. When the supervisor told Nicole this, she allegedly left work, but didn't automatically go straight there because she still wasn't there when the police had to call again. A coworker from that same job testified that she had many conversations with Nicole about Anita. That was one of the first things Nicole ever said to her was, "What do you think about a roommate that sets their alarm and leaves so you can't get in the room to shut it off?" The coworker said that she was angry, and that was the only time Nicole was angry with Anita. It was almost on a daily basis. This coworker stated that after the murder, Nicole told her that the police were looking for her, but if she kept her mouth shut, she would be okay. Nicole also told this coworker after she went to the crime scene with her parents that her dad said she couldn't come back to their farm, that she had to stay in the shed on their property. The shed didn't have a lock, and Nicole said she was scared to sleep there because Anita's family could be coming after her. So obviously this is when the statements that Nicole was making that were very strange were coming to the light in this trial, and this would just continue because on the fourth day of trial, Nicole and Anita's high school friends would testify. One was named April, who said she was closer to Anita, but she heard about Anita's murder while she was at work. So some of their high school friends all got together to process the news, and Nicole was the last one to arrive. She had actually just been at the police department, so when everybody went to go talk to her about what had happened, Nicole stated that the police wanted her to check if there was anything missing and that her iPod better not be missing. This is prior to her going with the police and saying that. They said that Nicole was not emotional about the death, and another of their high school friends, Michelle, said that Anita was like a sister to her. And at her funeral, Nicole told Michelle that if they didn't find a suspect, the police were going to come after her for murder. Now, the next testimony would be the most explosive. This was William May, Nicole's ex-boyfriend. William would state that they started hanging out the summer of 2008. They went to a house party together, and he stated that someone in the kitchen was talking about Anita's murder, and that's when Nicole stated that she had done it. She had killed Anita. William called the police, told them this the next day, and cut ties with Nicole.
We were sitting on the couch, Nicole and I were sitting on the couch, and a couple buddies were playing video games, and someone from the kitchen was talking about it, and that's when it was stated, the comment.
When what was stated?
The comment was from Nicole Rice. It was that she had did it, that she had killed Anita.
Nicole said that?
Yes.
Okay.
During his cross-examination, the defense said there were no records of his call to the police in 2008 and that he didn't speak to law enforcement again until after her arrest in 2022. William was then asked about his interview with Cold Justice, where he said that he didn't think Nicole could hurt a mouse. William admitted that he suspected Marty as the killer. Now, the next testimony was a woman who also had an encounter with Nicole at this house party. Christina would say that Nicole was crying, and when she asked her what was wrong, Nicole said she was getting bullied about the anniversary of her roommate's death. Christina said she then gave Nicole a ride home, and they had a convo in Nicole's apartment that night, where Nicole allegedly confessed to killing Anita. Christina said that Nicole said she got into an argument with Anita and stabbed her, that the argument was over an alarm clock.
And did she tell you something during that conversation?
Yes,
What did she tell you?
that she had done it to her roommate.
What did she specifically state to you?
I'm not 100% word for word, but that she had gotten into an argument with her and had stabbed her.
Do you remember what she told you the argument was about?
An alarm clock.
And she specifically stated that she stabbed her roommate.
Yes.
Christina called the police and she went to the police department. She wrote a statement, but again, there was no record of this confession. Christina said she actually kept in contact with Nicole for a few months and that Nicole drank, and when she did, she became very controlling. They fought a lot, and Christina said if she wanted to hang out with her other friends, Nicole would get very upset. Their friendship ended with an argument and she never talked to her after that. Now, day 5 was when Nicole's aunt Brenda would testify. She was testifying for the state against her niece, but under subpoena. She did not want to be there, and this was the only time it appeared that Nicole was actually emotional in court. Brenda said that Nicole often called her her other mama. Brenda said that Nicole did not react the way that someone would react after a murder of someone they knew. She said that Nicole referred to Anita as an effing C word or an effing B word. And Brenda stated that after Anita's murder, Nicole actually moved to New Mexico within 4 to 6 weeks of the murder. This was allegedly due to a man she wanted to be with. But her Aunt Brenda traveled to New Mexico for one of her sons, and she ended up meeting up with Nicole while she was there. After that, Nicole actually moved back to North Dakota with Brenda's help. So on that car ride, Nicole and Brenda were talking and they began to speak about Anita's murder. Nicole said that there was a cut screen and that the person who cut the screen was most likely hiding in her bedroom waiting for Anita to come out of the shower to make the attack. Nicole said that it was horrible seeing Anita lying there, but she looked so peaceful covered up with her robe. She also mentioned there was a bowl of water in the bathroom sink, and whoever did this must have washed the knife and themselves up after the murder. Now, Nicole was not at the crime scene when the body was still there, showing that she was face down in this robe, and Nicole also did not know, or shouldn't have known, that there was a bowl of water found in the sink that was taken in as evidence. Nicole then said that Anita was raped and stabbed, but there was no struggle. Brenda said that Nicole's stories changed throughout the years, and that once she told Brenda she deserved to die. She was an effing C word. Nicole wiped her tears in the courtroom as her aunt said this.
She told me that, and the person, whoever did this, cut the screen and was hiding in her bedroom waiting for Anita to come out of the shower to make the attack.
Okay. Did she tell you anything else?
She said that it was so horrible. She said to just see Anita lying there, but she looked so peaceful, covered up. The story's always changed.
What'd she say?
She deserved to die.
Nicole's uncle, so Brenda's husband, then testified that at a birthday party with the family after the murder, Nicole seemed very disengaged, and when some kids were asking her about her roommate Anita, who had been killed, she told them she didn't like her anyway. That is when we would learn more about the inconsistent statements that Nicole gave. Sergeant Carmen Asham said that the first statement Nicole gave was that she got home late from work that Friday and left early Saturday morning from the apartment to go to her family home on the family farm. Nicole said she left Minot around 8 in the morning on that Saturday and stayed there until Monday when she went straight to work. Nicole also told investigators she had not spoken to Anita for 3 weeks, and that Friday night she had heard Anita playing music and it sounded like she had a male over. Yet another statement a week later from Nicole was that she actually saw Anita that Friday night at the fridge, and she knew the male voice that she had over was a man named Michael Linrud. She said during the second statement that she left early Saturday morning and she got to the farm, and then she and her family actually went to a party in Carrington. She said she stayed on that farm that Saturday night with her family the whole time. This was found to be a lie. She'd actually gone to the club with her cousin, and when she was called out for this, she told the police that she was only there for 15 minutes and then she went to her aunt's house. Then in an interview 3 years later, Nicole told the detectives unprompted that she had stopped drinking because people said things when they were drunk. This was an interview after her ex-boyfriend William had allegedly gone to the police about that drunk confession, which now cannot be found in the police department.
In most conversations that she had with investigators, she talked about how they were best friends. She saw herself as Anita's protector, bodyguard.
What are the dates of those text messages?
April 21st of 2007.
2 months before Anita died, correct?
Correct. My dad and I are going to talk to the landlord ASAP and see what we can do, because honestly, I have no idea what I did to you to make you all of a sudden be all weird on me, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I sure as hell ain't going to put up with it till December. Well, what goes around comes around. I have tried the being nice strategy, and that just obviously didn't get the point across.
When the prosecution rested, the defense asked for a motion for judgment of acquittal, saying that there wasn't enough evidence to give this case to a jury. They asked for a dismissal or a direct judgment, but the judge actually denied this, and it was given to the jury. However, the defense had a witness themselves. This was a former FBI agent turned PI that stated that just because the door was locked when her body was found didn't mean it was unlocked when the killer entered and then could have locked the door behind them. He was their only witness before they arrested. There was talk about one of their witnesses going to be testifying over Zoom. This was a former person of interest, Devin Hall, who was incarcerated at the time of the trial. Nicole actually agreed to allow him to testify. However, he did not end up testifying, and it's unknown why. But prosecutor Tiffany Sorgan gave the closing statements holding up a picture of the alleged murder weapon and Anita. She said that Nicole took this knife and plunged it into the chest of a girl and killed her. Then Nicole told her aunt about the bowl in the bathroom sink and said the killer washed their hands and cleaned up the knife afterwards. Sorgan said that Nicole's family farm to that apartment was about 40 minutes, and that Nicole had a window of opportunity for this murder about 9.5 hours. Defense attorney Rick Sands' closing argument was about the media circus that this case was and about the window of time that she allegedly had to commit this murder. He said they're trying to use conjecture and hearsay to convince you guys that Nicole got out of bed in the middle of the night, drove to Minot, killed her roommate, scrubbed the scene of DNA. She's a mastermind mob hit killer. We're talking about a daughter, a sister, a wife, and a mother. This doesn't happen. This is a load of crap. But on March 26th, after 5.5 hours of deliberation, the jury claimed that they had reached a verdict. Nicole Rice was found not guilty of the murder of her roommate. The court erupted, especially the defense, when this was read. The defense attorneys were jumping up and down screaming. Nicole fell back into her chair. She appeared to be sobbing, and she was then free to go.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn, find the defendant, Nicole Aaron Rice, not guilty of...
Do you believe the jury got it right? Is Nicole Rice an innocent woman who is almost convicted of murder? Is she a killer who got away with it? Why is there no record of these confessions that two people claim that they had made of Nicole only a year after the murder occurred? Do you think if there were records of those confessions that this would have been a different outcome? What do you think would have changed the outcome of this case? How in the world is this still, after 18 years, a murder mystery? Was this the maintenance man? Was this one of her friends, Michael Vann or Tyler Schmaltz? Was this someone completely random? I mean, let me see if I can find it. I literally wrote a diagram out, all of the suspects. And I mean, honestly, they all seem suspicious. But after so long, do you think that any of them will ever be convicted? I mean, we have Nicole with her strange actions, her contradictory statements. We have Michael Vann, who was the wannabe boyfriend who was texting her, who had unknown whereabouts after he left that party alone. We have Tyler Schmaltz, who was said to be her friend, but also who was in love with her, wanted more, was way too into the investigation, but was also raising money for billboards. Could he have been doing this to manipulate the police, saying, look, I'm helping to try to find her killer, I can't be her killer? Or was he just genuinely a distraught, nice guy who was in love with this girl who ended up being murdered and he didn't know what else to do with himself? Who knows? There's also Devin Hall, who said that he had that same weapon, that it was even missing the medallion that was just like the murder weapon, but investigators said that, he was mistaken and that wasn't really the murder weapon that he was referring, or that wasn't really the knife that he was referring to himself having. There was also testimony that he had been found in another woman's home that weekend and that he was allegedly the man seen running away from Anita's home? Or was it his friend Duran Vivier who had a sexual assault case that he was convicted for that happened around that same exact time? Or were they both involved in this? But then again, what about the maintenance man who claimed that he found the screen away from the home and then he plucked it from the window, who took his life 2 years later? There's so many questions in this case, and it really makes me mad for Anita and her family. The fact that her parents at 80 and 90 years old had to get on that stand and testify for her. If Nicole really didn't do this, and that wouldn't have been justice anyway. But from this trial, all of the testimony, not only did all of her friends and her family think that she did it, but so did investigators. There just was never enough evidence, it seemed, and even now, to convict her. But in a court of law, she is innocent. I would love to hear all your thoughts and theories. And do you believe that Anita will ever get justice? But don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay.